Okay, so I'm just going to get straight into the story with this track because we're starting to get into the climax now, and there's a lot of stuff going on. Um, whilst Ruin and Forest have been hiding out on their own, separated from each other, hating each other, sort of missing each other, really, there's been some drama going down with the Celestial Forces. So they over time passing, the Celestial Forces have realised that their powers have been growing weaker. They're not quite sure why. I think some of them are like, oh, I bet it's Ruin and Forest. But the others are like, no, this is something else. Because I think Balance starts to think that because Ruin and Forest are not time and they haven't got time in the picture, then it means that the balance is not right, and so therefore the reality is actually slightly unstable, and it means that they are getting weaker, and then eventually the reality will collapse again and remake itself again, which is a bit of a concerning thought. And I think to some degree some of the forces are trying to get Ruin and Forest back, but I think there's not so much of a urgency to do it at this point. And then I think a lot of the forces are also trying to just do how they can and figure out, and they're like, oh, there's probably another reason for it or whatever. But they're all trying to figure it out and solve the problem. But there is this underlying concern. But gradually they begin to realise that of all the forces, Chaos is not getting weaker. If anything, Chaos is getting stronger. But by the time they actually realise this, it's a bit too late. But what's been happening basically is that Chaos has been siphoning off their power and feeding themselves with it. I feel like I should defend Chaos a bit, or at least explain Chaos a bit, because Chaos has definitely come across as the villain here, but they're actually, it's a bit more complicated than that. So if you remember back in the first commentary, I talked about that king in that other reality, and how that unknown being came and whispered in his ear about how time was the cause of all his problems. You might have guessed this, but that was Chaos. And Chaos wasn't doing it because Chaos hated time. In fact, I think, so if you remember, I said that time was a bit like arrogant and cocky and kind of rude. And I think Chaos and time had this sort of rivalry, but it wasn't like a angry, antagonistic rivalry. It was more of a friendly rivalry, but a bit antagonistic. So, a bit weird. But think like Greek gods, you know. And I think Chaos said to time, oh, I bet you can't cause so much trouble for this king, because you're just time, like, what can you do? Like, you can't actually cause problems. And Time's like, oh boy, red rag to a bull there, and he was like, I bet I can. And then it's like, oh, okay, well then I bet you can't make the king do anything about it. Like, he's gonna be so powerless. Like, watch me completely destroy this guy. And so Chaos is like, okay, interesting challenge. So then, that's why Chaos goes and talks to the king. And I think at this point, Chaos didn't think that the king would actually be able to hurt time. Like, I think Chaos wanted time to be like shocked and maybe like damaged a bit, just to like take time down a peg and catch them off guard. But and Chaos knew that the king could not do that without any more ethereal assistance, let's say. So Chaos was like, oh, I'll help this guy. It'll be fun. It'll be funny. And what happens, of course, is that it seriously injures time. Like, I don't think Chaos realised how bad it was going to be. And of course, it caused the reality to unmake itself. And Chaos was right at the epicenter of that unravelling. So, and we've seen the effect that had on time, because time was split into two. But Chaos was essentially the sword that split time down the middle, if you want to think about it in a metaphorical way, or if you want to think about it literally. I don't know how it happened exactly. But chaos was right there at the middle of it, and chaos did not come out of that unchanged in the new reality. But no one really realised that, because I don't even know if chaos realised that at first. But that's partly why they've been acting this way. So they're not right anymore. But yeah, I thought it was important to say that, because I didn't want anyone to think that it was like, oh, chaos is bad. No, chaos isn't bad. Chaos, none of the celestial forces are bad or good. They're just them, and they cause problems. That's pretty much them. That's their job description. So chaos has been siphoning the energy off the other forces, siphoning the power, and is growing in strength while the others are weakening. And they realise this a bit too late, and they're like, oh, sugar. And so they're trying to take chaos down themselves. But obviously not kill chaos, because they still need chaos in the world for the balance to work. And then they realise that they can't do it. Chaos is getting too strong. This is all spilling over into the mortal world as well. And I think it's probably Balance who says, we need Ruin and Forest because we need time, because we need all of us together. We can't do this without all of us. Which means that they need to get Ruin and Forest to come back together. So I think they sent out word to both of them to make them come together. And I think Ruin and Forest were aware of what was going on anyway. And so it forces the two of them to basically talk to each other after being at odds for so long. And that's what this track is. It's them, that first confrontation, that first meeting. And so they're both having this back and forth. You can hear the back and forth between their main themes. And it's on two different synths, because I wanted to get that sense of conversation. And they're both like sort of sniping at each other, and then they both realise that actually they both missed each other so much. What happens, you can hear the line, just know that I lost my only friend in the end. And Ruin says it, and then Forest mirrors it, and that's when they both realise that they both missed each other more than they hated each other. And so then they start actually talking to each other more. Forrest is basically saying that he thinks he's too far gone, essentially. He's become this destructive force. There's no good left in him. And Ruin's like, shut up, that's not true. Because I think she says, if I'm trying to be good and I know there's still bad in me, then you who are bad must have still good left in you, sort of thing. And she knows that. She doesn't believe that he's too far gone anyway. And they both still need each other, and they realise that they're always going to be that way. So, and this thing with chaos is bigger than the two of them. If they don't do anything, this whole reality could unravel itself again, and they don't know what that would mean, other than it means that they might not be together anymore. So they don't want that, so they both decide that, yes, okay, they're going to work together. And what Ruin says at the end is, I'm still here, are you with me? I still need my only friend at the end. So they decide to work together, which is nice. They still have like a lot to unpack and talk about, but they're going to work together. So as a fun fact about this track, I wrote it when I was trying to write The Forest is Burning. And then it sort of became this confrontation. And that was when I realised there was a bigger story to this album. So I was basically trying to come up The Forest is Burning from a completely different angle. But then the themes started talking to each other, I guess. I was just vibing, and then it happened. I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is a conversation, not a solo. And there's this track basically which caused the whole narrative of this project to happen, because if I hadn't done this, then I wouldn't have gone, oh, there's a story here. I'd have just gone, oh, okay, I would have just had the 3 tracks. So I was going to say it's this track's fault there's a whole album, but actually I guess it's the Forest is Burning's fault because of it was being so stubborn and difficult. So blame them, but blame the two of the tracks. So yeah, you're welcome, I guess. Yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, as always.